Afternoon Talk on SAFM.
Tell you what, lots of what we spoke about earlier on to a degree has been about lobbyists, don't you think so? Because we spoke earlier about education, and I asked the question that if people have been sort of mobilizing around the toll roads issue, I can't understand why South Africans, not just people in Limpopo, are not mobilizing as parents and as children around education in that province specifically. But you could say ditto across the board. Then, of course, we had the issues of environment with Eskom and what have you. And as you've just heard, Elabella Constantinidis talking about Rio Plus 20. It's all about mobilization. So maybe, or mobilization means lobbying. Interesting, therefore, that my guest, Dennis Fourie, is called the lobbyist. I think to a degree, maybe you're going to challenge that. Well, he's the man in the spotlight. So 0891 104207, 0891 104207. In fact, he started the lobbyist group. And if you are not interested in anything else in the world, just the fact that he's been involved in a group called the Lobbyist, you may want to know more about him and what he's achieved and what he hasn't achieved by being that lobbyist. You can also tweet 34701. That'll cost you R2. And well, 347 was SMS. Of course, if you're tweeting, it doesn't cost you nothing. Just your time and your reputation, maybe, if you don't say the right things. To Twitter, Ashraf Garda 1 if you follow me. And, of course, you can comment on my Facebook page. By the way, Dion Fourie's got a Twitter handle as well. It's Dion_Fourie. Have I got it right?
Dennis.
I've started Dennis. Why am I saying Dion? Dennis Fourie. So DENIS. That's 1INIS _Fourie. And that's on Twitter as well. So Dennis, great of you to come in. Thanks for allowing us to put you in the spotlight.
Thank
right?
you very much.
And you've done lots of things, but I mean, the interesting thing that two things come out for me. One is the lobby part, and the other one is the ability to negotiate massive deals. And that alone should get people interested in your story.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's sort of just it's from years of thought process, and that having been in sales for many years. Sales director for many companies, and that I think I just got frustrated with the fact that my sales guys could never get to top CEOs. Mm-hmm. And that's where the idea of the lobbyist was born, which was born many years before I actually started the company.
Okay.
Essentially, the idea
born
was...
by you?
Yes.
But it didn't materialize until years later on?
Yes, exactly. It was really, I needed to conceptualize it properly, do the proper planning and all of that. I also needed the experience. So I joined various organizations to try and gain experience in specific areas. The whole purpose of the lobbyist was to try and facilitate discussions between top CEOs. So in other words, facilitate an introduction between CEO of X company to CEO of Y company, thereby bypassing the entire purchasing process. So that was the idea. I essentially took the traditional form of lobbying where one organization lobbies on behalf of another to government. I said, why do I need to do it only to government? Can't I do it from business to business? Right. Business to government, government to government.
So as we were discussing earlier on, the issue about environment issues, you will get organizations, NGOs lobby to government.
Exactly. So we would lobby on their behalf. And we would go and speak to politicians or to business owners, and we would gain the relevant funding or facilitate transactions, etc. Essentially, a lobbyist hides behind the scene. You never know they're there.
Okay, well now we know you're around. Yeah. Okay. So then you applied the same principle to business, but was it a novel thing then at that stage?
It was. No one knew about it. No one understood that a lobbyist could actually do business to business, facilitating transactions. I mean, we did amazing transactions from selling castles in Europe to moving oil in Saudi Arabia, to moving gold, to selling businesses, acquisitions, mergers, investments in ports, airports, road infrastructure, etc., across 24 different countries. Mm-hmm. We dealt with 26 of the top 100 billionaires in the world, 24 countries' government on ministerial and presidential level, 18 royal families. I mean, we really dealt at the high profile on that.
As the lobbyist?
As the lobbyist. And really what we did was facilitate transactions between these different businesses, whether it be investments. Most of the business was investments. About 69% of the revenue generated was from investments. But there was lots of others. It could be IT even, Major company wants to purchase an IT solution. We're the guys who negotiate that solution on top.
So why would they need you? I mean, with respect, if you have company A and company B, and they're both big companies, they know about each other anyway. I think the problem is when it's a small company with no money and no reputation, and they need to get the door, foot into a door of a big company, then they would need someone.
It is generally more your mid-sized companies that are trying to get in. But you do find that the top companies prefer that facilitator role. Now, bearing in mind that every one of our clients, whether they were a buyer or a supplier, a client, or clients and a supplier in that, both of them were members of our network, and they needed to qualify to be on our network, which means we've done due diligence on them, etc. Now, our starting fee, as an example, to be a member of our network was $250,000 per individual, and you needed to qualify as a net worth of over a certain amount, etc. There was a lot of criteria to qualify. So when they dealt with us, they knew that they were dealing, their clients or their supplier that they're dealing with is also part of our network.
Okay.
So we've done the necessary due diligence. We know the people. We can offer guarantees.
So you had to form part of a club. I mean, effectively.
Exactly.
It wasn't like, okay, I need your help, Dennis, and I need you to just do a deal with MTN. This was a case of they would know exactly that if they're part of this club, these 20 or 30 organizations were belonging to it.
Well, exactly. And I mean, our success rate on deals and that was 94.6%. That's high for a closing rate on deals. And it's simply because we knew our clients on both sides. If you weren't a client that if we didn't know you, we would need to get you to join. We'd do the necessary due diligence on both all the directors within the organization as well as the company. Extensive due diligence.
And what's the lobbying fee then? What percentage?
Well, the percentages vary depending on the size of the deal.
All right, but ballpark figures?
Anything from 0.1% to 10% of the actual deal.
Okay.
Now, bearing in mind that our deals are significant.
Massive, indeed. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, good chance for you to say hi to Dennis Fourie, once of the lobbyists, not anymore, in fact, but he still doesn't mean he's lobbying or he's not lobbying. So two things. As we put him in the spotlight, you can do a couple of things. If you know him and you want to say hi to him, that's fantastic. I always like that. If somebody from your school days who said, this guy will never succeed. Well, if you want to say, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, then there's a good chance for you to do that. 0891 104 207. That applies to a teacher as well who said the same thing, born to fail. Something along that line, maybe. Or alternatively, if you are that teacher or family member who realized even then that Dennis Fourie had all the qualities necessary to make a huge impact in this world. And if you want to just confirm that, it's great. Other than that, if you have any specific questions around business, because we speak often about entrepreneurship, so it's all, if you really want to grow your companies from small into something massive, I think at some stage you need to rely on other people to assist you to take that next step. And maybe some fancy words escape you, but the word lobbyist could well be what you are looking for. So 0891 104 207 as we continue putting Dennis Fourie in the spotlight right after this.
Savvy exporters from Brazil, Russia, India and China are using SA to jumpstart their businesses to the north of us, and they'll be participating in the DHL BRICS Africa Export-Import Forum featuring the future of trade in Africa to be held in Joburg in July. If you want to expand your business or network with international suppliers, the DHL BRICS Africa Export-Import Forum is the place to be. Gallagher Convention Center, July 15 to 17. Entry is free by pre-registering on www.bricsafricab2b.com.
Afternoon Talk on SAFM.
Right, now Dennis Fourie with me, but besides lobbying, let's just talk about the entrepreneurship side as well.
Yeah, well...
we've got a feature called Money Makers.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, many of the people said, don't call it money makers. And I said, well, give us a better name. Don't call it entrepreneurs, because I don't want that. That's pretty normal. We want people to think about it. And the interesting thing, most people, the reason they objected, and we haven't changed it now because they haven't come up with anything that I said wrong, is they said that it has a negative image for someone making money. And I'm actually saying, for goodness sake, if you make money, it means you're going to get rich. You don't need government to assist you. But it also means you're employing other people along the way. So others will get rich with you. And what's wrong with that if we're doing it legitimately?
Well, actually, I don't think that there's any entrepreneur out there that doesn't get into it for the money. So to call it money makers... it would make sense to me.
Being as blunt as it is.
Being as blunt as it is, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've tried lots of businesses. I've started just over 12 businesses. But to be honest, 9 of them failed. It took a lot of practice to get it right eventually, and coming from a underprivileged family, really working on the mines and that, I didn't have the mentorship, in terms of my father, which was great supportively, but... he didn't have the knowledge in terms of business. So I really had to.
That is ground.
I had to read a lot.
So quick one. Why did the 9 fail and why did the 2 succeed?
You know, a whole lot of different characteristics, I think. You know, it's just the wrong idea at the wrong time, not proper research. I think the biggest thing was proper research. And you know, that's where I try and help entrepreneurs nowadays in my mentorship, and that is, you know, sitting down with them and saying, guys, have you thought about all the different aspects that's involved in this? You know, it's not just about whether you've got the passion. It's what is your idea? Is it a viable solution? Who's your market? You know, what's the financial impact on this? Where are you going to make money? When are you going to make money? Even more importantly, and how much money do you need? A lot of people tend to think, yeah, I've got a great idea. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And, you know, I need 20 grand or 2 million bucks to do it. But they haven't thought it through. I see that on a daily basis.
So you sort of assist them in saying, hold it. If you're saying you need 2 million, explain why.
Yes, exactly. And, I actually sat with a kid the other day. It's quite interesting case. He's got a very good concept, and he's a developer he's designed this website. And he came to me and says, okay, well, I need 200,000 rand to do X, Y, Z. And I said to him, well, come to me. Let's go through some, mentorship. Let me take you through the business plan, etc. And we spent probably about 4 hours or so going through it over a course of 2 weeks, in between obviously glancing at different things. But it turned out that he actually needed about 2.6 million rand in terms of investment because yes, he's got the concept and he's thinking only of a certain cost for developing the thing, but he's not considering all the other logistical and operational expenses.
So what happened then? You told him that and he walked away.
Yeah, well, obviously there's that fear.
He wanted a small shop and you telling him build an empire.
Well, not really. That is the small shop. You want the bigger shop, it's even more. But it's being realistic. So the first thing that I find with entrepreneurs when they come to me for mentorship, and that is I give them the realistic view and saying, guys, buy into this. To get investors, to get money is actually quite easy. Okay, in South Africa...
Okay, some are saying you're talking nonsense, but you know that,
in South Africa, yes. No, I mean, to get money in South Africa is really hard, but there are tons of investors overseas that will invest in this country. I mean, we ourselves, with the lobbyist group, we invested over $5.6 billion within Africa in different organizations, and that could be anything from IT through to mining, etc. And that was over a course of 2.5 years. So there's money there.
Very short time.
Yeah. South Africa has always been a hard one to invest in.
Okay, so what happened with this youngster then? Let's finish that story.
Yeah.
So you told him more that you need 2 million, not 200,000.
Well, the thing is, he bought into the idea. He understood why. And, it was teaching him the skills as well in terms of understanding. You need to understand the financial aspect of your business. You need to understand what you need in terms of logistics and operations, etc. He's bought into that. And we're actually, this morning, we actually presented to some investors, and they were, looks great. We're interested in this. Let's do our due diligence and come back. So I take the entrepreneur through the entire process. I don't just sit with him and criticize his business plan. I actually sit with him and go through it, change figures, helping with templates, formatting, everything. And then I even help him with presentation at investors and introductions. So I don't just sort of leave them to, fend for themselves. It's taken them through the entire process.
Okay, and I think as people talk, I'm sure some are saying, well, that's exactly what we want. Let me just see if I can pick up this. I mean, you see, this is the typical one. If we all maybe understand saying the world is full of shysters, and the word shyster comes to mind. I'm not sure whether it's referring to you or anybody else. But I mean, what about that? The fact that, people have an interest in growing businesses. We know why. We've discussed it often. The government clearly needs more and more people to create their own wealth, right? As opposed to sort of being a welfare state. But people are concerned about who they can deal with and who they can't.
Well, yeah, I think in this country specifically, entrepreneurship is a big problem. It's not being promoted properly, and that as opposed to other countries overseas. And we did some research last year where we interviewed about 600 odd people within Southern Africa. It was 4 different countries, and we gave them a questionnaire to determine, are they innovative people? Yeah, and about, I think it was 22% of them actually qualified as in innovative entrepreneur characteristics that they displayed. But then you look at those that came with those ideas, and how many of those got funding? Less than 1% of those got funding. As opposed to the United States, which has a lower percentage. They've only got a 12% of people that are innovative, but they're getting a 70% of funding. So our biggest problem in this country is funding. It's not the skills. It's not that we don't have the ideas. We've got some great ideas. I hear on average 2 to 3 pitches a day.
And yet I hear people in government, people, I speak to people even yesterday from youth organizations. The word entrepreneurship, I think, is huge. It's always being discussed. And you're actually saying we don't do enough.
We don't do enough in terms of funding in that. Example is there's no such thing as proper venture capital in this country. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people out there that's going to be saying, no, rubbish. But, overseas, you can get venture capital for, a concept. You can go to an investor with a concept, say, this is my concept. I want to take it to market. Help me. And the guy will provide you the funding to do the research, to test the idea, and then take it to market if it's viable. Yeah, in this country, the majority of the institutions where you can get funding want to see a year running and showing profitability before they invest.
Then we'll talk to you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the problem. Well, Dennis Fourie is my guest. He's the man in the spotlight. So from the lobbyist, he's very much involved in entrepreneurship as well right now. The issue of mentorship, I think, comes to mind. I'll get to the callers. I think Paul was going to call. Paul, you've just dropped your line. If you want to call back, I certainly will take your call in just a second. 0891 104207. 0891 104207. And there's some questions via Facebook from Lala and Simon, which I will do right after this.
Afternoon Talk on SAFM.
Right, so Dennis Fourie is in the spotlight. So former group CEO of the lobbyist is now. So you're with, it's called what, the Trusted Advisor, if I understand.
Yes, that's right.
That's your
Trusted
company.
Advisor, yes.
Nice name, the Trusted Advisor, and that's all to do with mentorship to try and set up businesses. Simon wants to know from you just how good is the nationalization of mines? You can comment on that.
Nationalization of mines. I must say I don't actually know much on the subject, to be honest. I mean, other than a dinner we had with Susan Shabanga last year, where she pretty much said it wasn't going to happen. So nationalization of resources, yes, but of the mines, no. I mean, we just don't have the GDP, the money to actually go and buy these companies. So.
Right. There's another one I'll pick up in a minute. Let me just get to the callers as well. 0891 104207. Zakele in Joburg, you need to get the headphones on, right? Hi, Zakele, thanks for calling.
How's it, man?
I'm very good indeed. Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, man, I'm low on airtime. You know what? I just want to tell that gentleman that what he says that it's difficult to get funding in this country. The problem is this ANC simply adopted the World Bank system. I look at these things every day, and I'm just thinking, what is this nonsense in front of me? Where am I going to get all this experience that they want? They don't want to invest in greenfield investment. They don't want to invest in concepts. They want you to have been in operation for 5 years and having a positive bank account and having a positive cash flow in the business. Nobody wants to look at greenfield investment. And it is all because of the ANC simply taking IMF and World Bank standards and dumping them in this country. And those things were made for the people who had been in business for years. Now there's nobody wanting to give us a chance.
Okay, let's stay on the line. Yeah. Hopefully your airtime doesn't run out. Quick answer.
No, I don't want. In summary, I don't like this World Bank. They must just get out of our country. IMF and the World Bank, they must just go back to Europe.
Okay.
We have our own problems here.
All right, thanks for that, Zakele. Right, respond to that?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest problem with entrepreneurs is the first place they go look for funding is banks or, various other institutes.
Besides them or their parents or their uncles, there's nowhere else to go, according to them, yeah?
Well, yeah, but it's really about networking. I mean, if you look at a financial institute trying to give you money, they've got to take risk into account. So naturally, they're going to say, well, are you profitable? What kind of person are you, et cetera, okay? An exception to the rule is like Race Corp. Alan Ray's them. I mean, you had him on your show. I mean, what an amazing guy. And, his organization, he takes it to another level. So he's a venture capitalist, okay? But he's an entrepreneur. So that's where the difference is. You're going to get your funding from other entrepreneurs, which are angel investors or venture capitalists. That's where you need to go and look for your funding. Don't go look for your funding at
why not go to a bank? I thought banks are our friends. They spend money, they promote themselves. We talk about them on these shows.
They take your money.
We put our money in the banks. Why not?
You can purchase your assets and stuff through your bank. I would never get funding through a bank in terms of investment and that. I mean, just their rates and regulations and everything that they want and guarantees and that are just too much. It's better for an entrepreneur, someone who understands business, someone who really understands the risks associated with that. I mean, banks really put in a formula and it throws out yes or no. angel investor will sit and listen to you and look at your, characteristics. Alan Ray said it a while ago on your show, where he's
not interested in the business plan.
He's not interested, and I agree with him. He's not interested in a business plan. I want to see you. Are you a passionate person? Are you driven? Are you self-motivated? Because if you are, you'll be successful. You can train. I always say you can train skill, but you can't train passion.
So I'm wondering. People are wondering whether accountants work in cahoots with the banks, because they always say you must have the business plan. By the way, we're going to talk maybe tomorrow, maybe next week sometime. We're going to talk about on the big question at 2. Should we review our banking system, which may be very relevant to the discussion we're in fact having. Let's get some more calls. 0891 104 207. Dennis Fourie in the spotlight. He's got lots to say. I can tell you now. His story is fascinating, but what he can teach you probably as well, just as much. There are some people I want to just pick out before. I tell you what, let me get to Chris in Cape Town first, then I'll get some of the emails as well. Hi, Chris.
Hi there. How are you guys doing?
I'm very good indeed. Yep.
Great, man.
Fantastic. I'm actually an entrepreneur myself. Unfortunately, due to exactly what you guys are talking about, the funding issue, my partners and myself all have our day jobs to carry on with. And I was wondering, what is the most efficient way of getting funding, especially on something like a startup concept or a pilot project?
The best way is to go and look and pitch at venture capitalists or angel investors overseas. You're not going to find them, many of them in this country. There are a few of them that do that. But is to really network and get in contact and let someone facilitate introductions to angel investors overseas. That
would be fantastic. Dennis, do you have a website that I could look up? I'd love to email you.
Yeah, well, I can give you my email address.
Please do.
Okay, It's Dennis. It's DENIS.
DENIS.
At thetrustedadvisor.co.za.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that one. There's a couple other emails wanting your details already. So there you are, Dennis at thetrustedadvisor.co.za. Right, John in Hartbeested Dam. Okay. Hi.
Hi there, Ashraf.
Yes,
it's Johnny. How are you doing?
I'm good indeed, John.
Great stuff, Ashraf. Being black myself and obviously being a South African citizen, in Northwest, obviously there is not enough supporting structures for funding, and I've been to a couple of these institutions that deal with youth funding and all that. It takes a lot of time and a lot of paperwork and a lot of patience, and it's just too much paperwork, first of all, to be bombarded with. So what I've done instead, I've said, you know what, I've given up. I'm not getting any funding, so I decided to just take my business off the ground. It's been 4 years now, and I've got major clients such as University of Cape Town, Department of Social Services. What I've done is I've now run the business out of my personal budget. Whatever I make a month, I put back into the business. That seemed to work, and that seemed to give me a bit of motivation as well, that there is hope out there. There are clients, and that's how I manage to service my clients, and obviously by winning my clients' trust, I'm able to convince a client to pay up 70% deposit because I've got trusted customers that I've been dealing with, and my reputation is quite good.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Thanks for that, John. I mean, can you start a business without money?
Yeah, definitely. I think you can. I mean, I started the lobbyist group with 30,000 Rand, and we sold it for a significant amount, 2.5 or 3 years later. So, I mean, to be exact, we sold it for $96 million.
Which means you started with 30 and you were dealing with big companies. You got them to buy into your concept.
I got on the basis into my concept and into me, into the trust level, and it naturally started off small. It did. Guys tested you with a few 100,000, and then it was $1 million, and then it was tens of millions, and then it was hundreds of millions. So, but it slowly progressed. And when you do well with one client, and especially when it's high profile, they facilitate the introductions to another. So the way that we grew our base, we never did marketing. Everything was word of mouth referral. So we insisted on our clients. We said, "Great guys, we will waive a certain percentage of our fee if you can facilitate an introduction to at least one more person." And that's how we actually grew our network. It
sounds so simple.
It actually is. People complicate it, and it's, it's actually not that complicated.
All right. So I'm looking at this quote, and I think this is yours. It's not just who you know, but who knows you too. That's exactly what you said.
That's my favorite quote.
All right. We need to tweet that one. It's not just who you know, but who knows you. That's a great one from Dennis Fourie.
I mean, the biggest problem is if you look at something like LinkedIn, is everyone has connections. I've got 10,000 connections. I've got 2,000, 5,000, whatever the case is.
Indeed.
The problem is, how many of those people know you? they're a number on your network. Now, you'll notice that anyone adds me on LinkedIn, I immediately send them a mail and say, okay, let's facilitate a meeting. I'm going to meet you face to face, because if you're going to go on my LinkedIn, I am going to meet you.
And if they say, no, I just want your picture, you'll say,
oh, I just remove them. It's just not relevant. I mean, I'm quite hard with that, but I've got probably 6,000 or 7,000 contacts on there. But over the last 7 years that I've had it, I've met about 5,000 of those.
So you've made the point.
This morning alone, I met 2 people that added me yesterday. So I make the point.
You're a busy guy. You're going to be linked into the news as well. Let's get the news headlines right away. But Dennis Fourie continues being in the spotlight. I'll pick up another call and you can answer that one as well. Alice in Pretoria, hi.
Hey, how are you, Ashraf?
I'm very good indeed, man. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I wanted to comment. I had on your guest saying this issue of nationalization is dead and buried.
Yeah.
But I don't think that will happen anytime soon. I think the assumption that most of these analysts have thought is that because of the woes that Mr. Malema has been going through, then they've assumed that no, automatically that debate will be suppressed and will be dealt with and it will be gone. Because that is not the issue of Julius Malema. It has not ever been about Julius Malema. It has been about the squalor.
Anything you want to ask Dennis Fourie specifically? Alice?
Yes.
Yeah?
Is he still there?
Yeah, he's
Yes,
listening to
yes,
you.
thanks.
Okay. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, man.
Yeah, no, man.
Besides the
I would love
nationalization,
to,
you've discussed that, yeah.
understand how do you arrive at this conclusion to say that no, this issue of nationalization is dead and buried.
Okay, got that. Let's get an answer right. Quick one there.
Can I just say no comment on that? I don't know enough about the nationalization and that. I haven't been involved in it in this country and that. But honestly, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to go out and get into the mining sector and that, what's stopping you? Follow the proper processes, etc. People aren't going to take your mines away. Just follow the proper process that governments implement it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay. We'll certainly talk about the nationalization debate some other time too. I want to just spend some time just going back to... Okay, so are you a wealthy man? Are you rich? Do you have money?
Yeah, I've got
If
enough.
you don't have money, then the problem is quite honestly everything else you're saying. Well, why should we trust what you have to say if your own track record doesn't suggest
I've got
success?
enough, yes. I've
So you don't have
made
to work
it.
for how many years? 5 years? Just checking. That's what Robert Kiyosaki said. Don't work for a couple of years, then you're rich. Otherwise, you're not rich.
You know what?
just
Yeah,
overwork.
I tried that when I originally sold my shares within a lobbyist. I tried that. I did the sabbatical. Walk Great Wall of China, row up the Amazon. All of those different things, and lasted about 2 months. And I needed to get back into business. I am just one of those people. I cannot sit still and do nothing. So I do what I do because of passion, and I think that's why I've been successful. Is I've followed my passions, and I've always believed. And I ignore the naysayers. If you're a negative person, please move aside.
How difficult is that? Because sometimes the naysayers. I mean, if someone says, if you get past the USA and you're going to fall off a cliff because that's where the world ends, and you don't know any better, how then do you tell a guy you're talking nonsense when that's what the world knows at that time?
I think you need to do your own research. Go look at a lot of different people. Don't listen to just one person. I think your biggest naysayers that you have is your family and your friends. When I started my business, I had to, quite literally, I lost about 80-90% of my friends because I just said, guys, stand aside. If you're going to be negative about this and not support me, move aside.
So what changed in you? Because obviously, if they were
Determination.
if they were your friends before, then you were part of them before.
Yeah, I think, I just realized I went on a couple of different courses on that and, on how to, sort of find your being in that and be positive and, follow like The Secret and, the philosophy.
Which are the courses that you do?
Well, if you look at The Secret, which so I went on a few little conferences that did those kinds of courses and that. And, the biggest thing that comes out of it is remove the negativity from your life, no matter what it is. And it just helped me. It was actually amazing because when I stayed positive and I did my own research and I found mentors in not just one person but probably 20-30 different people, I realized that, well, the world is actually round. It's not because of one person that says it's
So these motivational causes, and many are skeptical of them, they do work according to you. Find yourself.
I've got a comment on. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it on radio.
You can say it. As long as you're not swearing. You can use better language.
Well, excuse the comments, but I always say that motivational talking is like sex without the orgasm. You get all roused up and excited in that, and when it's done, you're back to square one.
You're not in favor of motivational talk.
Motivation, but with actions on it. So you got to set the actions and follow those actions and measure yourself on a daily basis. And if you're not doing that, if you're just going to go to a motivation talk once a month, it's not going to help you at all. You need to actually follow it. Set a plan in your personal life and in your business life.
Do you think most people do that? They go for the motivational
I don't.
plan, and therefore they don't have the orgasm in their
yes,
lives?
No, definitely. I mean, I see it so many times. I've been to a lot of motivational talks myself, and the people are all excited, especially in corporates. They get so excited. Ask them the next day, and the guy walks in with a glum face. It's like, what happened? Oh, no. You understand what I'm saying? It's just, it's not there, the follow-through, essentially. You've got to set the plan and set it in motion.
Have to set the plan. Okay, Carmen in Midrand. Let's hear your plan.
People don't call back.
Hi, Carmen.
So,
Carmen, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yes,
this
you're
is
on
Carmen. I just want to know from Anton. I'm in the music business.
Okay.
And I wonder if Anton can just give
Dennis,
a
I'm not sure whether
that.
Okay, it's Dennis as opposed to Anton, but the
Sorry,
questions can
not
be made.
Anton, Dennis.
No problem.
If Dennis can give us some pointers on being in the music business, the changes that have happened, and technology that is exploding in another direction, and a lot of capital required to change systems and processes.
I must be honest, I haven't really been involved in the music industry at all, The most that we've done is actually set up studios and that, where we've invested in buildings and that for studios in Central Africa. But other than that, I mean, we haven't really, focused on that. But at the end of the day, it's all about lobbying and that.
Do you think
it's
it helps us to
networking.
hook up a studio here in South Africa?
Excuse me?
Do you think it would help us to hook up a studio here in South Africa?
If I would help you.
Well, she's doing the right thing. She's taking advantage of the fact that she needs you to know who she is. And then
Drop me a mail and we'll chat.
Okay,
All right.
okay, thanks.
I'm going to give out that email address in the next couple of minutes again, okay? So get
Sure,
pen and paper
I'll
ready.
take that, Ashraf.
There you are,
Thank
Carmen
you.
from Midrand. Okay, so I will give that email address out just now. Let's just sort that out. Okay, I'll do that. Maybe time for maybe two more calls. 0891 104 207. So I'm going to go back to your story. So you did these courses, and they were not motivational courses. They were motivation linked to action, like The
exactly.
Secret. And that, what age, how old were you at that time?
I think, what was that, about 5 years ago that I only did that. I've always been a positive person, though. But the thing is, I always, being the kind of person I am, I always need feedback from everyone else around me. And I think that's also part of the reason that so many of my businesses failed, because I had so many people around me saying, no, don't do this, do that. So even though my gut said do a certain thing, I ended up doing what everyone else agreed with, what the majority said. In hindsight, hindsight's a terrible thing. You look back and you say, well, shit, if I had followed that, and if I'd followed my instinct, it would have actually been successful. But at the same time, it was a learning curve for me. And I think through so many failures and that, both in my challenges, both in my personal life and in business, and that actually developed me to the stage where I could be successful and be positive in that. I mean, when I started the lobbyist group, just before that, I actually broke my back, and I was, they told me that it's going to take 6 months therapy to get me fixed up and on my feet again. And I was up and about in a month already. And I think it's just positivity. And that experience said to me, after that experience, my mindset changed.
You spoke about having many mentors now as opposed to just one. And your father, who loved you but probably couldn't guide you because he didn't know any better, right?
Yes.
Who's, give me maybe three names that either you know them, but even if you don't know them, people you followed and you admire the way they've built empires or they've built careers for themselves.
I would mention one, because it's the one that I would, I have Richard Branson. I've met him a couple of times, and I follow all of his comments and articles and stuff. Excuse me.
Does it make sense? Is it not just?
Yes, no, definitely. I love his.
What Fourie just do it? Is that all not nonsense?
No, I love his philosophy in that. He's actually the one, when I first started the lobbyist, he was actually in South Africa at that stage, and I managed to corner him. And when I say corner him, I literally put my arms around so he couldn't walk past. And I said, please, I've got this idea. I just want us to run it past you. And he sat down for me for 20 minutes only, but he sat down to me and he said to me, Dennis, let me ask you the first. After I explained the lobbyist concept, he said to me, so let me ask you, what kind of industry are you going to play in? And I sat thinking, I was like, well, It's professional services, is it advisory, etc. And I gave him a few answers, and he kept shaking his head. He said, Dennis, that's your problem. He says, you're picking an industry. He says, create your own, because once you've created your own industry, you do not have a competitor. And that makes so much sense.
I want to write this down. Create your own industry, so then you don't have a competitor. You could probably tweet about this word here. All right, good.
Yeah, and that's what got me thinking.
So you're thinking your industry now is what?
The lobbyist. It's got its own industry. I mean, I see a lot of other organizations that sort of followed suit, especially internationally. When you look at Middle East and Asia, and that a lot of them have followed suit in that. But I think
create your own industry, then you can do it without the competitors. Alfie and Ramsar, I'm not sure what industry you've created. Let's find out. Hi.
Hi,
yes,
how are you? And hi to Dennis.
Good indeed.
Yeah, I'm listening and I'm getting aroused, as Dennis put it.
Getting aroused is I'm worried.
If I'll have sex or reach orgasm, So I think Dennis made an assertion on social networks, and I give him benefit of doubt because I think he unintendedly mentioned something that makes him sound like selfish. Dennis is successful, but I would wish him to give, everybody would like to, connect with him a chance. It's not all about doing business at times. With his success, I think he can be significant to people that cannot do business at this level. But by simply being associated with him, it could rub on them, to be able to succeed in future. But as I say, when I listen to him, with my level of understanding, I think he didn't mean it the way he put it.
Okay, that's about the LinkedIn stuff that you
he was talking social networks broadly. I don't want Ashraf to put words in my mouth. I just observed in what he said, and I felt for that person who might not be at the level of Ashraf, who think that Dennis sounds very arrogant and selfish.
Interesting
Whereas
point. Okay.
In his presentation, he was mainly focusing on business. But I'd like him to allow to link with that person who cannot do business with him, but simply to associate with him. That person can grow, and that will expand the success not only of that person but of Dennis as well.
Alfie, nice call, Alfie. Thanks so much for that. We've got about a minute to go. He's basically saying he's in your corner, okay, and he wants to move away from any thoughts that you're a bad guy by what you said, right? Okay, we've got about a minute to go. But what probably is your biggest life lesson that you've learned? So I'm going to push you because we don't have much time.
Well, I think my biggest life lesson is that it's not all about money, and it's not all about business. I think my biggest life lesson is being a single father is family. So
it's not all about money, but it's also not about business either.
Yeah, it's about your family. It's about those that are close to you. Money can't buy you everything. And I've been there where I've had millions, I've lost millions, I've made it back again. Okay. But
all right.
That's
I'm going to rush you. We've got like 15 seconds. A book that you'd recommend we read, and maybe a quote as well. You've done other quotes, but one great quote. But I'm going to push you.
Well, the quote would be, it's not who you know, but who knows you too.
Okay. It's not just who you know, but who knows you too. Okay, and the book?
The book, actually, I would rather say, look at Entrepreneur magazine overseas or Business Insider. Naturally, I use an iPad, so, get those online, and those are the kind of books that you should read.
Need to be reading. Okay, Dennis Fourie, thanks so much for talking to me and allowing us to put you in the spotlight. It's been great indeed, and hopefully we'll inspire you to sort of get moving and becoming very entrepreneurial as well. Time now for Radio VUCA. 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 Time now for Radio